Hey, what's up, guys? This is Game on Cloud 9 here today. Oh man, this is a video I've kind of had on my mind for a little bit. This is a little bit more of a personal video, but almost may feel like a little bit of a vlog. Um, and this video is probably not going to be a video for everybody, just based on the kind of topic I'm going to talk about. But I just want to talk about a little bit of being a Christian in the manga space. So, for those of you out there who may not know, I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus. Um, and sometimes I think about like, as a Christian and being a creative, like creating manga and, doing this for a while, what it's like in terms of interacting with people, or more so when you're creating content like that, how do you make sure that you're staying true to storytelling, but overall, mostly, beyond anything, you're staying true to your faith. I don't know if any of you guys out there who maybe create manga, who are also Christians, if this is anything that you wrestle with, where you're like, okay, I don't want to um, overstep, or I don't want to go beyond, and create something that is not pleasing to God, for example, right? But this is definitely something I think I've assessed from time to time, even with my own work, where I don't want it to be something to where it is obviously secular, right? Like, and what I mean by secular, I'm talking about my own personal work. I'm not talking about anybody in the group or anything like that. Everybody has their own voice. Let me make sure I say that. But for my own personal work, I don't want it to be something to where it's not pleasing to God. But I also want to make sure too that it's a story that is um, interesting and natural as well. And that glorifies in some kind of way. You know, um, what God wants me to do in my own life. With my writing, because I believe these are gifts that the Lord has given me. So with that being said, I'm curious as far as maybe how some of you guys out there who might be writers, how you feel about that, even in your own work. This is thing I've wrestled with this for quite a while, and I mean I'm comfortable. I'm actually in a good place with it, but it's a topic out there that I don't see talked about enough in terms of like, because I think sometimes people either fall into the camp to where when they're writing something, it almost has to be preachy, if that makes any sense. Like almost to where everything is right on the nose, what they're trying to say, and it almost feels inorganic, or things that are happening in the story are not realistic, if that makes sense. And I think that's why sometimes you have some Christian based movies that people don't deem as good films or good movies or good manga or good content in some way outside of maybe the faith-based community, because it's not telling a story. They're not having elements of the story in there that maybe somebody might think is bad. Like, you might, like, I look at it, I'll put it this way to you, right, just to be more clear. You might have a character that may not be a good person in anything that you're watching, right? They may be bad. Even your main character might be bad, right? But that's what might make them interesting. That makes you want to follow the story, right? But I think sometimes when you follow some Christian content, there's a tendency to force the character to do certain things, or to end up, in the way that you want them to, for the sake of the story, because you're trying to, I guess, send a message rather than telling the story the way it's, that maybe what might be true to that character, or having characters in the story that may not all reflect the same thing. So I'm just curious as far as what you guys think about that. Um, because for me, and this is just me personally, I can't speak for anybody else out there, but my faith comes beyond everything that I do. My relationship with God becomes beyond everything that I do. So it's, there's no, negotiation beyond that. And I obviously don't put that on anybody else, and everybody doesn't share the same view. Like I said, this is why this is on this channel. This is more of a personal video, so this isn't reflections on anybody that I work with, or maybe how they feel. This is just how internally when I write things, I always try to visit that place. Like, I wonder how God would feel about this. Like, you might have violence, for example. I don't necessarily think that you can't have blood and gore in a story, and I don't think it necessarily makes it inherently bad. I don't even think having nudity in a story is inherently bad, at least in my view, right? Because you're telling a story, and in any story, when you're telling something, or when um, you're showing some things happen. That's a part of how life is. But what is the overall message of the story? It doesn't have to be, I think, cookie cutter, or you don't have to put on the kid gloves for everything. But I think it depends on what you're trying to convey that really overall matters. But those of you guys who are out there creatives, I'm curious what your thoughts. Again, that's why this is on the Game on Cloud 9 channel, because this is a personal video. This is not a video reflecting everybody or anybody. Actually, I'm going to say, other than myself, in the groups that I'm a part of, whether it be Shining Otaku, Imaginos, or whatever. This is just me kind of talking to you guys. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are, down in the comments. In any case, I will see you guys later.